and we'll be live soon, and you may see a little notification. Okay.
Well, good afternoon. We are pleased to be part of the Forefront Conference and have time with all of you this afternoon to focus in on retaining high quality, high performing staff. As we get started, we'd like to have a chance to share a brief introduction about ourselves and a little more about Nonprofit HR. So just to start, I'm Lori Kipnis. I work as the Managing Director of the Strategy and Advisory Practice at Nonprofit HR. I've been with Nonprofit HR a little over 3.5 years, and prior to that have about 20 years of experience in internal HR leadership roles, predominantly in the nonprofit sector, focused on K-12 education and youth development. I've also worked as the director of HR for a public school system in Florida, and early in my career had the opportunity to teach 10th through 12th grade at a private Catholic high school in Florida. And it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Julia Kaufman, to share a brief introduction as well.
Thank you, Lori. Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be here with you today. Similar to Lori, I have been with Nonprofit HR for almost 4 years now. We started around the same time. And similar to Lori, I've worked in the nonprofit field, HR field, education for a little over 20 years now. So excited to bring that experience to the conversation today. Also similar to Lori, I have an education background. I used to, in a previous job, I was the founding director of human capital for a charter school network in New Orleans, Louisiana. I also had the opportunity to serve as the director of human capital for a national education K-12 support organization that supported education districts throughout the country. So we're excited to be here today and to share a little bit more about what we've seen in the field and what we know are some really great practices related to retention and employee engagement.
Thanks, Julia. And I think as we get started, we did want to just briefly spotlight Nonprofit HR. As a firm, we're in our 21st year, and we provide support with talent management to organizations exclusively in the social impact space. And so this allows us to work with mainly nonprofit organizations, also associations, and more recently, social enterprise businesses to support HR issues. And so as part of that work, we have really the privilege of providing HR support to education organizations across the country. And just as you learn about nonprofit HR, we do provide the HR support in being able to leverage the skill set across our talent practices. And so that includes work with strategy and advisory, HR outsourcing, diversity, equity, and inclusion, total rewards, so items like benefits and compensation, as well as search, so support with recruitment. We also have a collaboration called CETA, which places focus on that HR support to social enterprise businesses. Now I'd like to turn it back to Julia as we get focused on our goals for our time together today.
What we'd love to do is also hear from you all and learn a little bit about where you all are. So I'm actually going to launch a poll. We'd like to know what sort of roles you all play either at your schools or in your diocese. And so if you could take a moment and respond to the poll. Lori, let me know if you can see the poll.
I know the poll is now live and open, so we'll allow for some time for completion. And have folks submit.
If you could just take a moment to share a little bit about the role that you play, that would really help us as we think about our audience and the best ways to share information that may best align with your particular role. We'll give a couple more seconds and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. And we should see the results. It shared with us that 57% of you all are school academic leaders. 1 is a teacher, and 2 folks are classified as other. If you could put in the chat bar what the other roles are that we see here, that would be helpful for us to hear from you all.
And Julia, if you want to continue while we're waiting for the chat feature, that would be great.
Thank you. So what we'd like to make sure that we do today is we are hoping that today what we can focus on is really honoring and acknowledging the issues and stressors that are related to retention. Educators are faced with regular daily challenges just by being in that role, but let's be very honest and clear that this year has certainly been a challenging one for everyone, but especially for folks that are working directly with young people, parents, and in an education-oriented industry. The other piece that we want to make sure we talk about and touch on today is really talking about proven retention strategies and provide you all with some strong examples. We like to think about retention as a theory of change, of interconnected aspects that include leadership, culture, and career quality. And then finally, we want to provide an opportunity to share some best practices and efforts throughout this presentation. If you are so inclined, we welcome any chats and comments. Marcy is our wonderful facilitator, and if for some reason Lori or I do not catch the chat, she will be sure to bring it up and make sure that we talk about any of the chats that we receive throughout this presentation. So first, we'd like to talk about the urgency of retention. We know as educators, you all probably feel this more palpably than most people do. We wanted to share some national statistics based on a talent retention survey that Nonprofit HR conducted in 2019. It included over 350 different nonprofit organizations across the country. And the trends that we saw mirrored what we see nationally across all industries. So about a 21% average turnover rate across different nonprofit missions. And then of those 21% of turnover, 16.7% were voluntary turnovers, meaning that employees decided they wanted to leave. Perhaps they had another job opportunity. Perhaps they decided to take a break from the workforce. And then 5.2% was the involuntary turnover. Those are the employees that we may have to talk about separation, or perhaps it's just not a great fit. So the majority of turnover really happens at the voluntary level, meaning the employees are making a choice to leave us. And that's really what we want to prevent, especially if they're a high-performing employee. And that's really what's guiding this conversation today. How can we prevent the loss of the 16.7%? So some of the factors that we like to talk about at Nonprofit HR that we think are really important when it comes to turnover is leadership and the importance of leadership in guiding organizations and guiding the culture of an organization. And then also, how does career development play into all of that? So I'm going to share the microphone with my colleague Lori and let her talk about the next slide.
Thanks, Julia. As Julia was sharing, just the emphasis on the power of the leader of the organization, your leadership team, those that hold people management responsibilities, the power they have to really drive and influence the retention of high quality, high performing staff is huge. And that's why we wanted to zone in on just a few examples of ways in which leaders can work to support retention of staff. The first being modeling positive communication and nurturing a positive work environment. And so now more than ever, just the power of focusing on what's going well, on celebrating, on recognizing the wins, and recognizing the wins with consistency. So we know that each day is very dynamic and very full, but taking the time in informal as well as formal opportunities to really recognize what is going well and to be able to support staff as they identify support needs as well. The other piece is to be authentic, recognizing when there is frustration, when there's uncertainty, when there's pain points. All of this combined helps to build a relationship of trust. And when that trust is in place, those days that have that extra degree of challenge or chaos allows you and those direct reports, your staff, to be able to move to more problem solving, more solutions oriented decision making that much more swiftly. The other emphasis is focusing on opportunity. So right now, with so much going on, spotlighting where we see opportunities coming out of the last few months, and particularly thinking of school environments, opportunities with respect to how communication channels may have changed, teaching approaches may have changed, spotlighting those, recognizing those, celebrating those, either in one-on-one sessions or in all staff formats as well. This is also a time, again, with that retention lens, to lean in on faith, to lean in on these school values, and to be recognizing actively members of your team that are demonstrating a commitment to those values and naming those and recognizing those. Again, it can be through a written note, it can be through one-on-one conversations that you're having, or in all staff formats. The third point, which you see as a third bullet, but certainly has equal weight to the others, is the emphasis on listening and providing opportunities for feedback. We know that Gallup did a really great amount of research coming out of 2017 tied to performance management. And the themes that came out were speaking to the point that employees are looking for employers that provide support with role clarity, that provide support with ongoing feedback, and that allow for accountability. So now more than ever, listening to your staff and helping to prioritize and add clarity to the multiple priorities at hand is a key recommendation with respect to employee engagement and retention overall. And we do recommend those of you that are joining that are in a leadership role to be working with those on your team that have people management responsibilities with a real focus on clarifying the priorities at hand right now, which priorities can be put on pause, which can wait for more of the longer term, to help support staff when there's so much coming at so many at this time. Also want to focus in when we talk about feedback on intentional feedback. And so we do recommend, again, with the focus on retention, of identifying ways in which you can create formal channels for employees to share feedback with you, to allow you as leaders, those that are joining as teachers, opportunities to share feedback, and for leaders to receive more of that pulse check or temperature check. You know your team best, so we defer to you on the right frequency cycle. Do you want to be mindful of not over-surveying staff at this time, but deciding on a frequency that works best and allowing for, ideally, opportunities for anonymous feedback. And this can look like doing a pulse check following a professional development opportunity of, how did it help inform your work this week, to if there's been a scheduling adjustment as you're moving back into in-person environments, how did the schedule shift impact you, what additional supports are needed, can we change or modify, being able to get the real-time feedback. You may have an existing tool, if not, just as a suggestion, something as simplistic as SurveyMonkey, and ideally keeping the survey to no more than 1 or 2 key questions that as a leadership team, you may be wanting to get a pulse check on so that you can inform with new initiatives that you're shaping. There's also standalone software that supports both employee engagement as well as temperature checks. Groups like Tiny Pulse or Office Vibe, in addition to doing temperature checks, it allows for employees to provide some peer-to-peer feedback or cheers, which obviously helps with engagement, or setting up an HR comment box. The key here is that you're receiving suggestions on items that are working well that you should celebrate, any issues or items across the school culture that should be changed, and suggestions for those changes.
Thank you, Lori. Using the chat bar, would anyone like to share some ways that they are gauging the temperature or the pulse in the cultures of their own school? We'll provide a couple of seconds for folks to respond in the chat bar. We're looking to hear thoughts from other people on the call about how they are listening to the needs of their staff. Marcy, do you happen to see any chats coming up? It's okay if there aren't. I just want to make sure I'm not missing them.
No, you're good. You're not missing anything.
Great,
so I'll just add for one moment and then we can move on to the next slide. But one of the pulse checks that you may want to implement in thinking about that importance right now of helping to support staff with clarifying priorities and being able to help folks kind of see forest through trees as those, identifying those A-level priorities. It may be worth reaching out and asking staff if they feel clear on the top priorities at hand, or they feel they need additional support tied to identifying key priorities. That may be a good place to start coming out of this session and getting a sense of the responses from your collective team. So Julia, not seeing any chat at the moment, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Lori. So as Lori mentioned, one of the key drivers when it comes to leadership is they help to shape and nurture the culture of any organization and entity, and certainly in a school building. But I think the biggest thing that's impacting cultures across the entire workforce is really the crisis fatigue that we're all under right now as the pandemic continues on into its 13th month. I cannot imagine how exhausted educators may be when it comes to constantly iterating different policies and procedures related to safety, related to in-person versus remote learning, developing the right protocols to make that happen, developing the protocols to make it happen quickly as needed, and the constant communication and communication channels that people are seeking updates on a regular basis through, whether it's text or chats, emails to colleagues or to parents, also communicating with just your nearby community members and keeping them up to date about openings or closings of schools, what the virtual learning environment may look like. And we all know that as a result of this, the mental and emotional toll it has taken on children, assuredly the staff that are managing all of this and loyally guiding and supporting, nurturing children every day in the classroom. And so one of the key things that we have found across the board, organizations that are doing well and thriving during this time of uncertainty, is just acknowledging it. So starting off with acknowledging and honoring the stress and the challenges that we all face, This is also an opportunity, as Lori mentioned previously, to really lean on faith as well. You all have a tremendous opportunity, because you are faith-based organizations, to be able to leverage that and use that as a daily checkpoint and touchstone to reinvigorate. But one of the most important things we can do to help lift spirits and to help nurture and support one another is really to infuse the positivity into the culture as often as we can. So offering grace and encouragement for all of the little wins, creating space for people to listen and to appreciate one another, creating space for them also to vent about things. We all need safe spaces to do that, and making sure people have appropriate space to do that, not with parents, not directly with children, but with one another or with their school leaders. Being able to do that and knowing that someone is listening to them goes a long way. In addition, it's thinking about how we can creatively honor all of the successes that we have gone through. I've seen many schools employ some really creative and wonderful ways to provide opportunities for shout outs for one another as peers, as colleagues, and also among leaders and direct reports. So I've seen everything from bathroom love notes. If you all have staff bathrooms, is there an opportunity to provide post-it notes and papers and just leave little notes for one another on the wall via post-it notes? Are there opportunities for formal shout outs at staff meetings or even all school assemblies? And what are ways we can publicly share praise and support for one another and really infuse those positive moments throughout our day? I think there's also an opportunity in a school setting to seek feedback and positivity from the students themselves. So depending on which age group you're looking at, are there opportunities for young people in the school setting to share what it is they really love about their teachers, their administrators, staff that they see every day in the school building or online? And how can we intentionally create spaces for that? Because a little bit of love can often go a very long way and lift spirits through some very challenging times. Beyond those techniques, we also have seen a lot of organizations really leverage benefit programs to help provide the support that staff may need through challenging times. This could be an EAP program, a program that is really focused on providing either mental health or coaching support for staff. If you have a short-term disability program or a benefits package, it may be part of that. And I also realized as I'm talking that I didn't flip my slides at the same time as I was talking, so bear with me. I'm going to catch my slides up to what I've been sharing. So as I just mentioned previously, I was talking about school-wide opportunities for encouragement and appreciation. Some of those examples are listed there that were mentioned. And in a moment, we'll open up the chat again to see if anyone has their own creative ways in which they're demonstrating gratitude and thanks at their schools. And as I mentioned just a little while ago, employee assistance programs, they're often called EAPs, can offer counseling. They also offer childcare and elder care resources. There may be many of your staff members that are helping to provide support and care for their own parents as well as their children. Some EAP programs offer professional coaching as well. And then some of you all may even have access to short-term disability programs. If someone is out ill for an extended period of time, they may be able to leverage that for pay continuation while they are out, if they run out of vacation time or sick leave. And many medical insurance programs and healthcare programs also have EAP wrapped into it, the Employee Assistance Program, and mental health counseling as well. We'd love to open up the chat bar, and we go back to the previous slide, and ask you all to use the chat to share any ways that you all are expressing gratitude and appreciation at your school. What do you find is working for you all?
And as we give some time for folks to add some examples that are working well at your school, just tagging off of Julia's comment around employee assistance programming or mental health counseling at times being wrapped into your medical benefits. We do encourage you to reach out to the individuals that are supporting your benefits tied to your school, your diocese. They can provide guidance typically or look into this if you are in that role. To be able to determine if there's a set number of counseling sessions that might be available, or at least what that copay might look like. It's helpful during these times to keep the reminders going through staff communications, whether it's email or staff meetings, that there is access to mental health resources, what that might look like from a copay standpoint. Sometimes it's simply just not being aware of the points of contact, the resources that are available. And so providing just greater clarification on how all staff can access the resources is certainly encouraged. And so Julia, I am seeing a comment in the chat bar, which indicates having a gratitude committee with a focus on finding creative ways to say thank you. It's a great role for people as they roll off the board, retire, etc.
I love it. Thank you, Mary, for sharing that. We appreciate it. What else do we see here? Jill shared that they do a monthly superhero teacher and present a cap and mask. That is fantastic to hear. And then monthly, we give thanks to our teachers with lunch or treats. Michelle shared there's a dress down day for teachers. And Motivation Mondays, where you can leave messages in their mailbox. This is fabulous. Thank you for sharing. Such wonderful ideas.
And Michelle's comment in regards to leaving little messages in the mailbox, I know Julie and I were just speaking this week, having come from working on the HR side within school environments, just the act of writing a note in this day and age of so much technology, it goes such a long way. And I can say, as again, from a prior role as a director of HR, the many comments I heard from teachers about the impact and the appreciation of receiving a written thank you or a recognition note from their school principal, it cannot be underestimated. So again, I know days are full and schedules are booked, but taking that time out to physically write the note or a quick message really does have impact.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Julia, just to share out the remainder of the chat, Jill's comment highlights congratulating student successes and acknowledging the teacher behind the success. So that alignment and that link, that's great. And Leslie shared, we frequently thank teachers during morning announcements and in weekly emails. The Parent Alliance has parents and students send special emails to teachers to express gratitude. So all great suggestions. Thank you for contributing.
Yeah, thank you all. I'll tell you, personally, I have 2 young children in an early childhood setting, and as parents, we rotate purchasing and distributing a gratitude lunch once a month. So basically, each parent takes that on. We have many teachers that we love, and we just want to share that. So I love how Leslie's mentioning the involvement of the Parent Alliance or the Parent Alliance and different ways to leverage your community in which you operate. Thank you for sharing. Herencia talked about having parents involved in sending thank you notes to teachers. Yes. I like that. Sometimes parents need encouragement to do it. I'm going to show a quick poll. I hope that everyone hasn't seen this before, but I wanted to see if folks could respond to the poll. Do you know who manages your employee benefits? Do you know if it's your broker, someone in the central diocese office? Do you have an HR administrator? If you would like to respond, I'm going to give it a couple of seconds and then I will end the poll. Wonderful. It looks like 73% of you all, 11 of you all know exactly who to go to. And then a quarter of you all, about 26%, do not. If you don't know, we highly reaching out either to your school leader or your, if you have an administrator or an operations manager at the diocese level, they may know if there is a broker or an administrator that can help point you in the right direction regarding those benefits. Lori, anything else you'd like to add there when it comes to benefits?
I think just to complement what you've shared, Julia, and what you mentioned earlier in, identifying who supports the benefits is a great resource right now to just provide some value-added reminders for folks that may have been on your staff for multiple years, and if you're in a school environment that has had a similar insurance provider for a number of years, folks may not feel that they need to review the summary plan descriptions often. So right now, more than ever, to just have a high level, it can be no more than 5 minutes reminder, as we shared, not only just access to mental health, what those copays look like, or what the link to identify a provider may be, but some plans may offer some form of discount or reimbursement for some preventative health. And so right now, joining yoga classes, weight maintenance programs, things of that nature may be reimbursed through some plans. Not all, but some do offer some perks in that way. So to be able to add that into an upcoming staff meeting, allow people just to know who to go to and what the resources are. One, it helps spotlight what can be and often is a comprehensive benefit offering, but two, it really helps support that access to some of the resources that can help all of us right now during these times.
Thank you so much, Lori.
I think we're moving to the next slide. I don't know if it's coming up on your end, Julia.
It's not. Hold on, I'm going to try it again. I apologize.
Okay. And if not, I'm happy to speak to the topic, and then we can catch up the slides as the technology allows. Does that work for you, Julia?
Yes, and I may ask Marcy to help me out a little bit. I'm continuing to click next and nothing is happening.
Uh-oh, it's not working.
Yeah, just can't seem to get.
It's not going forward in your slides?
No, I'm clicking the next button. And it's not moving forward to slide 13. That's where I'm trying to go to next.
So you may want to try. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's probably the fastest.
I can try to share my screen?
Yes. Yes, and at least that lets Julia come off of share screen and see if that'll get hers moving along again.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcy.
All right. Are you able to see my screen?
I see the leveraging benefits slide.
Okay.
Marcy, I can't seem to stop my share, so I'm wondering if that's blocking Lori.
I'm happy to just speak to our topics. I know we have about 10 minutes left with the group and want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. Our next slide really spotlighted the career quality piece, and by that we mean career development. And so what what we wanted to highlight as a key factor in employee retention relates to having opportunities for your staff to continue to grow and develop. And one of our main recommendations and kind of takeaways that we hope you consider as a leadership team leaving the session today is the importance of stay conversations. And stay conversations are really intentional, structured conversations that you typically have one-on-one. We would encourage you to think about the timing of a stay conversation. We'll talk a little more about this in a moment. But it is really to preempt what we on the HR side, know is the historic exit interview. So making sure that you're having conversations with your high performing, your high quality staff, and you're getting a sense of what are their needs, how can you best utilize their skills and talents, what supports might they need, what factors may cause them to consider leaving your school environment. And so it's having a real proactive conversation on the basis of advocating for a employee's growth and development, and doing that so that you're getting that information early and you can take actionable steps as needed. And so, Julia, if you don't mind moving one slide ahead, I'm going to share some examples of stay conversation prompts that you can integrate. And the New Teacher Project did some great work years back to focus in on some discussion prompts that you may bring into a stay conversation. And so what this can look like is we do encourage that a stay conversation be led by a direct supervisor. Some schools choose to have, if there's an individual with HR responsibilities or there's a principal themselves that directly wants to schedule the meetings. But the reason we're suggesting the direct supervisor, if that's not the role of the principal, is because it really speaks to an employee that their direct supervisor is listening, is an advocate for their growth, and is hearing them. And as a leader, in turn, what you can ask is that your people managers are sharing with you a short list of the folks that they have talked to. And it can be a very simple process of, I want to understand who you've completed stay conversations with, and if you can do color coding of red, yellow, green as far as attrition risk. Those that you're not worried about attrition can be in green. Those that you have some concerns, yellow. And those that you're really hearing factors that they may be thinking about looking at another school environment, another role, in red. And any that are in yellow or red, that you're having that conversation with that people manager to determine what action steps should you be taking collaboratively to help support and enrich the employee's experience at your school and from a retention perspective. And so the value of stay conversations is that it really gives you the information that you can use today to form an action plan to support retention. And again, that emphasis that it does signal in a genuine way to employees that you're caring about their career and that you value their contributions within your school. So some of the questions that can ground a stay conversation is, I'd love to hear what you like best about working here. And that gives you, as leaders of the school, an understanding of what is being celebrated. What are the drivers of bringing people into the roles that they're taking at your school and keeping them here? What do you want to be mindful that you're not changing? And then a key question of, am I using your talents? Many of us ask that of direct reports, but I think the key to this discussion prompt is, am I using your talents fully? Are there other ways in which this, your employee, your staff members are wanting to contribute, are wanting to have depth and breadth within their role? And often those are opportunities where their skills can align with a school need. If they really would like to have more writing opportunities, are there communication materials? Are there certain ways in which you're choosing to have them get involved through working groups or other initiatives that also speaks to career development for them? And then questions like, what can we do to support you to stay longer? What could be factors in having you think about leaving? To be very transparent with these conversations. We do suggest that the timing of these take place before the winter holidays for your top performers and for teachers that are either new to teaching or new to your school, so experienced teachers but new to your school environment. And those conversations be prioritized in your first semester before folks are heading out on winter holidays. and then to continue those conversations with the remainder of your staff throughout the next semester. I think we'll move on to the next slide. Thanks so much. We did want to spotlight what many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. It speaks to, best practices as far as development opportunities for adult learners. Bridgespan did great research around this and really emphasizes the 70-20-10 model, that when you're thinking about providing career development opportunities, to consider the value of having 70% of the opportunity place focus on the job or experiential opportunities, for 20% to focus on mentoring, coaching, feedback, and that can be internal or external mentoring. And then for 10% to be the more traditional kind of classroom-based e-learning training programs. And just, in the interest of time, just want to spotlight for the on-the-job experiences. This is a great opportunity to be very intentional in conversations with those that you supervise for retention purposes. You can provide very low cost, low time investment options that go a long way with respect to development opportunities and ultimately retention. So an example of this is if you have emerging leaders on your team, allow them to have opportunities to gain soft skills as far as leadership soft skills, things like communication skills, negotiation skills, budget management. This is a great opportunity to invite someone to come into collaborative planning discussions and to be intentional rather than just saying, I'm going to have you join a particular part of this meeting, that you're explaining specifically, as you continue to develop your experience and your exposure to future leadership opportunities. I'd like you to come into this meeting. This is the why. This is what I'd like you to observe. I'd like you to see how this is communicated. I'd like you to observe the balance between hearing needs for the school and the budget restrictions. And as following that meeting in our next one-on-one, we'll talk about X, Y, and Z. Now that's just an arbitrary example, but as you can hear, to just be intentional about the types of opportunities as far as having staff join project teams, having staff attend and observe meetings that they're not a normal attendee or part of that group, allowing them opportunities to shadow on the job. These experiences all, again, go a long way in ultimately folks feeling developed in their role, having depth and breadth within their role, and factoring into retention.
Thanks, Lori. So we'd love to hear from you all as you think through some of the tactics that we just shared, some of the examples that were just shared from your colleagues through the chat bar. What would you like to continue doing? But are there any new strategies that you want to consider trying? And as you think about those strategies, how will you get buy-in? If your role is a teacher, how can you take some of these tactics, bring them back to your leaders or your team that you're operating on and begin to model them? Are there any additional resources that would possibly be helpful to getting some of these tactics and strategies in place? If you can share in the chat bar some of the things that you heard that you think could be actionable at your school, please share that with us. We're excited to hear what folks are interested in, what resonated with them, and what they think they can bring back with them.
I know we're down to 1 minute, so as we let folks enter in the chat, Julia, I'll turn it back to you to close out.
Sure. Thank you all so much for your time today. The work that you do and the work that you're committed to every day is so inspiring. It is truly a privilege to work with organizations and educators such as you all. So we appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. And as you think about your action items and possible next steps, really think about some of the strategies that may work for your school and how you may be able to secure buy-in, either through leadership or team members, and then what you may decide to implement, and then determine how will you know if you're successful? What does success look like? How can we lower or increase those retention numbers, decrease the attrition numbers? So Megan shared with us that she ends her staff meetings with, is there anything I can do to make your job easier? I love this. And she says she likes, am I using your talents fully? Thank you, Megan. Employee turnaround due to a variety of things, but it's good to ensure the employees feel heard. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing with us, Megan. Are there any other tools or things that you all would like to see that we could share back as a result of this? And please go ahead and put that in the chat bar as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this conversation. It was a pleasure to connect with you. We hope some of these reminders and highlights and strategies are helpful as you continue to speak with your leadership teams, as teacher groups. Thank you again for your time.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. I will be stopping the broadcast. We appreciate your time and talents today.